My name is Rosalind Griffin. I live at 29 in Baltimore, Northwest Baltimore. My current neighborhood in Northwest Baltimore is Mount Washington, which is primarily family-oriented with generations of younger and older people. The area, when I moved there in the late 1980s, was mostly families with children. Those children have become adults and moved away. We currently have younger families moving in, so it's a mixture of both. People are neighborly and look after each other, at least in the block where I live. So I enjoy living there. I've been there now over 35 years. The history that I've learned more recently is one that is part of what's called the Black Butterfly. The Mount Washington Improvement Association has been looking into it. The history is that the Mount Washington Improvement Association has been looking at it and found that it was a neighborhood that had racial covenants. And it was a neighborhood that the Mount Washington Improvement Association is now trying to do some looking at in terms of seeing what were the barriers and what are the current barriers that prohibit true equality and equity within the neighborhood. So it is doing its own examination. It is a diverse neighborhood. However, the area in which I live is the most western part of the neighborhood and has probably the least expensive houses that are there. It is a neighborhood that has very high education levels and high income levels, and a neighborhood that also, from my observation, is politically powerful. I've served on a couple of committees in addition to the diversity committee in that neighborhood. I participated in HIGH group called One Park Heights, which is an effort to unify the area below Northern Parkway and the areas above Northern Parkway. I spent my childhood in the area below Northern Parkway before moving above Northern Parkway. And the effort is to try to bring more equity and cooperation between these two neighborhoods. The one that is below Northern Parkway is heavily African American, and over the history had a lot of disinvestment by the city, and was the area where the blockbusters used that area for their own financial gain. There have been two experiences which I've had. I had an experience where I served on a committee for the Mount Washington Improvement Association, where there is an effort to plan for what's going to take place with the renovation and redevelopment of the Pimlico racetrack area. And I've also served on this subcommittee where, again, there is a recognition and an effort that there is disparity between the two neighborhoods, and maybe in some instances some fear of particularly the people who live below Northern Parkway and the people who live above Northern Parkway. The idea now is to try to plan some joint activities so both groups can begin to communicate and get to know each other better and do some things that will indeed bring collaborative actions, because High is also working on developing some housing and some other kinds of development programs, and my opinion is they do not wish to find themselves in a position where they are working with people who might fear their intentions. Well, when I first moved to where I lived, I owned I owned a Volvo, and I was stopped twice, and which I think at that point in the late 1980s, I was being racially profiled. Each time the police officer stopped me, he had some, what I considered bogus reasons for stopping me. I said, you know, well, did I do anything wrong? And then the mess, well, you're not the person we're looking for. So I had that particular experience, and another experience I had when I first moved, a flyer went out where there was a Halloween party in the neighborhood for children, and they said, you know, please come or make a contribution. So since I didn't have children, I thought I'd make a contribution. And when I showed up with candy and other kind of snacks, the person said, well, we don't need yours. And to me, as an African American, that was a message not that they had enough. That was a message that black persons not wanted, or at least black persons that we have not vetted, not wanted. And I think sometimes in the neighborhood that occurs, not particularly on the street in my immediate neighborhood, but in parts of the neighborhood that certain African Americans are given privilege and are accepted, whereas others, if they don't know you, may be implicitly discriminated against or consciously discriminated against. You're not the right class if you are a lawyer or a doctor that they know. You are honorarily white if you're somebody who wears hair like mine, particularly before now when people say that we don't give a hoot what you think about how my hair is styled. You might be not automatically accepted. I think we can bring people together by continuing the activities that we are doing. I participate in two activities. One, the diversity group, and I'm on the book club subcommittee, where we are having various books read and talking about them now on Zoom, and looking at not only race, but looking at gender and social class to try to make the understanding beyond simply color and bring in as many people as possible. I participate in the diversity dialogue that is beyond the Mount Washington group. So I'm like a number of individuals. You keep trying and you hope you will educate people to be comfortable with being uncomfortable about the things that they may think, they may believe, and be ready to accept that they don't know everything, but are willing to listen, because listening to other people's experiences and knowledge is what will help us to create an improved world.